Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the What Happens in Vegas podcast. My name is Victoria Taylor, and I am here today to flip the script and interview Dr. Steph, Dr. Stephanie Canestraro, I guess most people would call you. Steph is a wealth of knowledge, and she's always bringing really knowledgeable guests to her show. I know because I'm an avid listener of the podcast. And so I thought it would be really great if I could come on and bring Steph to the world and interview her rather than having her interview others. So, good morning, Steph. How are you?
Morning, great. I love this. I'm really excited because I did think about it and I try to do solo podcasts, but sometimes you just like having someone ask you the questions and really get into the nitty-gritty is probably going to be way better because I go way off track.
Don't we all? Yeah, we all do. I wanted to start by giving a little background of how you and I know each other because
Yeah.
I feel it also kind of touches on your story too.
Mhm.
But you and I sort of know each other, I guess, like industry colleagues, because I used to do work for a supplement brand that you're very familiar with.
Mhm.
So we sort of just got connected there, and I had always known about your work, known about your clinic and what the work that you do. I had always been a listener of the show, and it sort of just worked out a few months back where I was able to finally be like, "Hey, would you take me on and help me?" And yeah, Steph just is very gracious, and we're all grateful to have her. But that's sort of how we know each other. It's through the Poliquin sort of world.
Yeah.
I know that I was talking with Andrew last night, my fiance, and he's also my intro to this whole Poliquin world, right? And I told him I was going to be interviewing you, and he said, "Well, Charles used to introduce Steph as the best body worker he's ever been treated by." So he's like, "You should drop that. Like everyone needs to know Charles said that about her." I was like, "Okay, I'll include it."
I got to tell
um,
that. I didn't know that actually.
that's
So I
cool.
just, yeah, that's really very kind and gracious of him. He always was like really bigging people up, I have to say, like that he appreciated, I guess.
So I kind of with that, I wanted to just go into this whole Poliquin world because I feel like that's a whole sector of its own and how you got into it and how you know Charles and maybe like the beginning of your story and your journey with chiropractic there
Yeah.
with the Poliquin side of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I went into chiropractic college. I was really planning on going into medicine, and I took a year off in between going to Western and going to University of Victoria to really kind of make sure that's what I wanted to do. And I was working for like the BC Cancer Agency. And I mean, I was just like, I thought it was terrible. I'm like, this is awful. I don't understand this. People don't even come in looking that bad. And then we like poison them. And I know chemo has a time and a place. And everything was just bad news and doom and gloom. And so, like, I just knew it wasn't a great fit. And so I started looking for alternatives as people do. And up until this point, though, I hadn't had any large health struggles. Like, I'd had like things here and there. My stomach was a bit off, but all these things that weren't like interrupting my quality of life to like a huge extent. And I I just thought this isn't for me. And I knew I had to look for other avenues. And that's when I just started looking at people who were doing a really great job at what they were doing. And I found who ended up being my mentor, who was the person who introduced me to Charles Poliquin, which was Mark Scappaticci. And I actually knew like the way I wanted to practice after would be in the ways that these people, because there were multiple other chiros that I looked into that I was like aspiring to be like, but I didn't even meet him until like in school. So, I just started listening to him. I think I did one of his courses. I can't remember, but um, and so they were just thinking outside of the box essentially. And they were using acupuncture with other modalities and they were just like having these like people were flying in from everywhere to see them. So that was kind of what I knew I wanted to do after. And then actually during through one of those like synchronistic moments, a girl in my school was working for Mark Scappaticci's partner. And then that's how I ended up working there. And then after school, I did my whole externship with Dr. Scap, as people call him. And, before I was even having my own license, I was treating like royalty and I was treating, mm, you know, MLB players and so many hockey players and so many like just billionaires and CEOs and all of this. So Charles happened to be one of them, and he was one of the very first people that I treated with my own license. And so when Mark couldn't go somewhere, he would be like, "Can you go treat this person?" So I went to the hotel he was there. He was staying to teach one of his courses, which I ended up taking. It was biosignature at the time. And I treated him and I just put my all in, right? Especially at those times. Like I had learned a lot from SCAP. I already had years more experience just from all of I just got thrown into it. Like, I mean, I saw like 30 people a day in my externship with SCAP. And, I just kind of like thought I can help people in this moment. And I always kind of just went for it. It was kind of like a detriment to my body in the end. But anyways, he felt big changes. And I just remember like in that moment, he was just like, oh, I got to get introduced you to this person and this person and that person. And then I went to his course that weekend and then we went for dinner with all these people. And he kind of just like welcomed me into his kind of world where I learned a lot from his world as well and all his little talks. And, everyone that knows him has like learned a ton from him for sure.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I think it's hard to like explain the Poliquin effect for people that aren't familiar. I mean,
Yeah.
at least I can witness for people like Andrew, he kind of like legitimized the personal training career in a sense,
Mhm.
where if you know Poliquin or you're familiar, then like you're a legit trainer. Whereas, you know, if you're not, oh, are you just a weekend or is this just a side hustle? This isn't your career sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like he sort of connected to via Designs for Health, like personal training or this like sports side, which like I would say Cairo is sort of involved there too, with like functional medicine, got them the products that naturopaths were using.
Yeah.
So I feel like Designs for Health also has like a cool link there where he
Yeah.
kind of brought everyone together. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a cool story. So I wanted people to hear like your intro.
Yeah, and I
So I think
mean,
it's cool.
he was one of the first people that introduced me to supplements. I went to chiropractic college. We learn a little bit about supplements, but to be honest, it's very bare minimum. Like we learn more about pharmacokinetics and drugs and painkillers than we do about natural medicine. So it's just in my school. There's different schools that are much different than the CMCC where I went, but it's very medical based. We share our facilities with medical doctors. They used all of our anatomy labs. And by the way, chiropractors do more anatomy than medical doctors, so that's just something that we were really learned well was radiology on our own. Like, I don't think people sometimes realize the schooling that goes into Cairo, but yeah, not a great amount of natural medicine. Like at the end of Cairo college, oh my gosh, no, I did get really sick, but I had gotten over it by the time I met Poliquin. So I had my first bout of neuroborreliosis in 2010. I didn't know that it was Lyme disease in my brain, but I had stroke-like symptoms, my face palsy, all of this. But then I did a parasite cleanse with SCAP and did all this stuff, not knowing it was Lyme, and just got my immune system to a point where it took back over. And I like came back to life. Like, and Poliquin helped me like build muscle, but because I had lost so much because Lyme eats a lot of your muscle, but I didn't even know what it was. All of a sudden I was just skinny. And he taught me that, but he also did some applied kinesiology on me. So that was when he was like, "Oh, you have low stomach acid. Take this." It was the first time I took a probiotic. It was the first time I took stomach acid. Like I was taking the betaine and that helped my digestion so much. Like, and then it was just like a catapult from there. So it was like the two of them, um, Mark and Charles Poliquin, that like kind of brought me into this world. But I had started to dive into functional medicine and found Terry Walls, but she was more diet based at that time. And then SCAP introduced the parasite cleanse. And I had went to see naturopaths. I'd been to every doctor and no one had helped me more than these two guys, so that kind of started to build the foundation of, okay, there's a lot that some people don't know. Like there's a whole new world that they're not exposed to. And that just kept getting deeper and deeper for me. And then, when we connected in 2021 or whatever it was, I had just gotten my second bout of Lyme, but that's when I realized that it was Lyme and it
Yeah.
had been reactivated by COVID and EMFs. And that's what we're seeing a lot of these days for people.
And I sort of just want to not pause, but I want to touch on like, I think there's a lot of people like me, especially that look up to you and your practice and what you've built. But like you just rhymed off, You were seeing what, 30 patients a day,
Mm.
in grad school, after grad school. You had gone out and found SCAP and found Charles. Like you were actively looking for mentors and working really hard and searching for answers yourself, right? Like all of these answers in this practice didn't just fall into your lap. Like you had to go and make that connection between diet and supplements and functional med and chiropractic. And now I just think it's really cool to see Vegas. Like it's really this melting pot of
Mm.
all of these modalities and everything you've learned. And I
Mm.
think that's why it's also harder to explain like what you do and what Vegas is unless people actually work with you because you
Mhm.
can't just, it's not a one-liner, right? It's
No.
like so many years of practice and experience and learning that's gone into that.
Yeah, it's, you know, and again, things came full circle because I started wanting to practice less because I was tired and I got sick. And I was kind of even catapulted into not being able to because in 2021 Lyme reactivated. It was really bad. Like the older you are, right, the less kind of defenses you are, the less you bounce back. People feel that from their hangovers as an example. Like, they could drink when they were younger and then they can't now. But I kind of stepped back from treating so much because I felt like what I was doing was giving my all to other people and depleting my own self. And it's hard on the body, the type of body treatment we do. But then I also thought, oh, this is the stuff that is the powerful stuff, the supplements and this and that. And then I had to get sick again for body work to have helped me so much get over my sickness, for me to see how important the two were. Like it was like another aha moment. And then it taught me how to clear deeper lymph, which no one's really doing. And we can get people over humps and better so much faster, like through my own learning through my own experience again, and through then, starting to treat other people online and then having them come in to actually get body work and seeing that move the needle way more in people that couldn't take supplements because they were herxing too much, even if they were working on drainage, which is something we can talk about. But like, so yeah, and it's so I also had to relearn the importance of the body work that I was doing on people and how people need that skill set, or they need to have someone local to be working on their body at the same time, or self-treating, which is something we want to teach people too. And we do teach our patients, but we want to put it onto like a bigger scale, is how powerful these things can be to help us get past our own healing barriers, and especially with chronic symptoms.
Yeah, I know even for me getting treated by you and Leah for the first time just this past winter, I think over 3 days after that, my HRV nearly doubled.
Yeah.
And leading up to seeing you, I had already been integrating, I eat a quote pretty well perfect diet. I strength train, I lower my toxic load. Like I've been in this world for a couple of years and I thought I was doing all the right things. And I was starting with supplements and prioritizing drainage, but getting treated by you was like the first time my HRV had budged
Mhm.
in years. I'd always been like, I'm so healthy. Why is my HRV so low?
Yeah.
Couldn't figure it out. And
It's
even
crazy.
just like having you work on my lymph and whatever else you and Leah did that day, like I've been begging you to make this lymph course and I want to talk about that. But even what you've taught me already of how to clear my own lymphatic system and the ways that you're teaching that we can't really see online because, lymph has really gotten popular and there's a lot of people talking about it, but it's a
Yeah.
lot of this softer like daily work, which I think could be great for someone who's not sick. But like you say, when you're in it and you're herxing and you're going through these crazy symptoms, like you need something that's going to work and it's going to work fast. So maybe you can kind of talk about your perspective or kind of how you treat lymph differently.
Yeah, so we kind of compare it like when you're just doing those small pumping motions on like the major lymph node areas or clearance areas, like you really can only affect the superficial lymph. And that's what people are talking about the most. And that's when you see the actual swelling, that's when it comes up to the superficial. But what we've been seeing and okay, so first I'll start by, they also say that, oh, if you move a lot, your lymph moves, right? Well, we work with athletes who are having severe deep lymphatic stagnation, right? This needs to be addressed and to start to be recognized as a problem because it's putting actual pressure on the organs, which can lead to not just very uncomfortable symptoms, but they can be life-threatening if someone has like an underlying thing that they didn't know, something electrical in their heart, or so we're more and more passionate about it because we're like, this needs to be known. So when you're pumping your lymph just gently, like I said, you're working on your superficial lymph. When you're dry brushing, you're maybe working on your superficial lymph, but that's even questionable. It's good for circulation, like blood flow to the skin and stuff. But yeah. So first of all, your lymph moves electrostatically. Okay, so first let's go into like, why is everyone's deep lymph getting stuck all of a sudden? Well, we know toxic load, right, will always make our lymph more stagnant. There's more to clean out. Your system gets overloaded. You can get like literally traffic jams in these exit points. But they've also released a man-made frequency. And everyone in my fields and in bioregulatory medicine, you can use different frequencies. Different frequencies are healing and different frequencies are detrimental. Okay. And we know that. We know that from electricians know that. There's, high voltage you can't be around. There's, they know that in movies because they can make you feel stressed with sounds in movies. Like the whole Jaws thing is one of them, right? It's different frequencies affect our cells in certain ways. So now they've rolled out onto everyone without any warning, without any studies on humans, a technology that's man-made. So even when we had, because I'm talking about 5G, but when there's 4G, 4G was harnessed scalar waves. It's still detrimental because they've taken it and it's in like coming at us in a different way. But at least they weren't man-made novel frequencies. So the release of these frequencies have affected the way our calcium regulates in our cells because it affects our voltage gated calcium channels. It's damaging our cells and creating way more waste in our body. And also we attract more of these frequencies when we have more heavy metals and waste in our body. So then we actually, our electrostate, the way our blood and our lymph moves electrostatically. So start to think of all the blood clots that are happening. Blood and lymph are very tightly related, right? Like if you're clotting, your lymph is not moving. Like, so there's that. And then there was actually studies where they take 5G and they irradiate, or they put at a base camp like a petri dish with mold. Okay, a base camp is where you're getting a lot of 5G frequency, and you can think about that. If you can see a tower from where you are, you're pretty much getting that much radiation, which most people can, and they're going to be everywhere. And then they took one and they put it in a Faraday cage where it's protected from all bad electromagnetic frequencies, and then they put it away from a base camp. The one that was in a Faraday cage, the one that was at the base camp, the mold made 600 times more spores. So spores that mold makes is what makes it more toxic. Okay. So now you can think some people have mold colonized in their body. So now they're getting exposed to 5G. So they're irritating that mold and it could be making more waste. If you have mold in your home and your 5G's on all the time, mold is growing faster and harder to eradicate. And people are having to have like that, people that are in the know about remediating their homes from mold. And then there's that added effect when you have mold or other toxins. Like, okay, so if it does that to mold, what do you think it does to Lyme and Babesia and Bartonella and all the Lyme co-infections? It's probably making it more pathogenic, especially from what we've been seeing, right? So, we're seeing this deep lymph stagnation in healthy young people that have never even had issues before. And I'm seeing them firsthand because I happen to work with NHL players who are having severe symptoms like I did: heart palpitations, muscle twitches, liver pain, spleen pain, difficulty breathing, the feeling of severe anxiety, like wanting to jump out of your skin, like rashes, swelling in different areas. Some of them actually get swelling, and we can feel the deep lymph, and that's feeling the fascia. So fascia, underneath the fascia, the deep layer of fascia, that's where your deep lymph runs. So your lymph nodes collect all this. You have your lymph vessels. They're blind-ended tubules, right? So blind-ended means like there's an end to them in the tissue, and then they only go one way, right? They're not circulating back and forth just like the blood. And then it comes and it has to get cleaned out in the lymph nodes. Okay. So, and then from the lymph nodes, it has to go and drain into your termini, or people call, or the thoracic duct that clears 75% of your body, and that's on your left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, it clears 25% of your body. And then it has to go into your circulation, but first it has to go into your deep lymphatics, right? So it's clearing superficial, deep, all of that. So this is a big backup point, but you have to work on the actual fascia. There has to be like a teasing mechanism in it. And you have to be getting deeper than this light touch to move it. And doing it when you're grounded is even better because grounding helps to get you back to that electromagnetic frequency that our body likes, that makes the lymph and blood move through our body like a vortex, as opposed to being stagnant or having trouble moving, right? So it's and then we clear parts of the body that people don't talk about as lymphatic stagnation points, because some people are waking up, okay, your hands are tight. Obviously, lymph gravity pulls it downwards, so people's hands get tighter. A lot of like sacral edema or stagnation like around the low back. So people are waking up with like sore SI joints, or, but then it's better when they move around. Like that's some signs, and you have to work those areas, which a lot of people don't for lymph because there's no lymph nodes there. So, so we're trying to teach like how the lymph flows, where to clear it, all the stuck points, like going a little bit deeper, lots of different teasing, lots of just very specific motions with stretches that can help. We're showing how to clear the organs. So, and that's from a lot of pain and suffering from myself that we've got to that insight on there. And it's been invaluable insights, but it was like a painful journey to fully understand what I'm talking about here.
And I'm sure you have content or, information to support this, but I'm hoping maybe we can back up from the lymph conversation for a second and go towards the 5G. Are you able to rhyme off maybe like 3 or 5 of your favorite or easiest or low cost ways to mitigate that? Like, I know I see different brands online that claim to, block these sorts of frequencies and things like that. But what are 3 or 5 things that people can just start doing in their everyday, or maybe a product they can purchase that you trust to sort of mitigate them?
Mhm. So the biggest thing is, dose makes the poison, like trying to lower the amount of exposure, which is hard these days, but you can shut off your Wi-Fi at night. Like sleep should be a time where your body can rest. There's something called body voltage at night. It should be very low. You shouldn't be getting a lot of frequencies coming at you, so your body can actually heal, your blood can flow, you can clear out your brain, your lymphatics. So that's something easy. Shut off your Wi-Fi, put your phone in airplane mode. If you don't feel comfortable with that, have it plugged in outside of your room where you can still hear it. You can turn on people that are allowed to notify you in the night if feel like you need to be able to hear your phone, and you can shut off everything else. So, that's like do not disturb, but then you add the few people and you make sure it's 5 feet away from you. You don't have any fans plugged in within 8 feet of you. Baby monitors are one of the worst electromagnetic frequencies. You make sure you live at least, I think they say 8 football fields from those big hydro wires. Um, you ground each day. So that's a huge thing. And then you make sure you don't have dirty electricity. Like I think everyone should get a building biologist into their home. Like I'm actually doing it today with the cottage that I just bought, but there's different ways to ground your home better. There's different filters that you can use. There's different like price points of what you can do, but that's one thing. The other thing, so I talked about grounding. Grounding's huge. You can take all these positive electrons and you can, discharge them into the earth and get some electrons, right, from the earth. And you have that ion exchange. And there's, certain surfaces that ground you better than other surfaces, like concrete still grounds you, but not as much as grass or sand with the beach. So if you can just get outside, touch a tree, if your feet can't touch the ground, get grounding shoes if it's cold all year round or rainy. Like, so I have the Bahe shoes, and I tried them on a grounding mat, and it does, the ions are flowing through you. So those type of things can be something if you can't connect with the earth. There's also like PEMF or grounding mats if you're in like a condo or something and you can't get down all the time. But again, there are ways to use different copper wires and have different plants in your house, like that you can even touch if they have a big enough trunk, like stuff like that that you don't even think about. And then other things for mitigating, I mean, holding your phone less, like my phone's right here on my phone pillow. And so if I don't hold it, right? And I have my little I don't know where it is right now, but my little pen, so I'm not touching my phone all the time. And then if I carry my phone around, I carry it like this away from me as much as I can, not on my body. Because I mean, this phone has been shown to be one of the biggest toxins that we're exposed to on a regular basis, right? So don't let your kids touch your phone, put it into airplane mode if they're on it, and download their shows. Same with iPads. Like that is a huge thing because kids absorb even more of the electromagnetic frequencies. Um, you notice I haven't mentioned a lot of mitigation stuff, which I have them all. I have Soma Vedic, I have Aries Tech on my phone, um, I've tried the blue, oh my gosh, I forget what it's called right now.
Maybe
Anyways,
higher dose, like the PEMF.
no, the
What do
PEMF
you
I
think?
use, like that's like different because it's going to help you heal and it's going to help but these things that block or say that they're harmonizing, crystals harmonize it, right? It's just they don't hold enough energy for enough time. So it's like a drop in the ocean. You have to like recharge them. But there is so much, like crystals are hugely, hugely powerful. And if you've been in a room where they embed crystals into the walls and ceilings, which is something they do, or if you're surrounded with crystals, like you literally, like people think it's so woo woo, and so did I at some point in my life, but super powerful. But it's just the thing is like it's like a drop in the ocean for much exposure we're getting, but it's still something. So I'd say, um, I felt a little bit of difference with all of those little tools that I have. But when you look into the real science, if you can stay away from as much as you can or not have it directly coming to you, then and that involves detoxing heavy metals and making sure that you don't have co-infections and mold. And that's something that we test people for. And I test really healthy people that aren't having symptoms and they have these toxins too. But people have different genetics that make them more or less reactive to things. So depending on how you detox, or you're a male or a female, or just we have like all have like a theoretical toxin bucket, and some of them have big huge buckets and some of us have small glasses, and those are the canaries, right? So I would consider myself canary, you a canary. And if people don't know what canaries do in a mine, you have humans down there and you take a canary, because a canary will drop at a much lower carbon monoxide level than a human will. We won't even sense it. We won't be having problems breathing yet our carbon monoxide is going higher and our oxygen's going lower. So when they see the canary in the mine, it's in the little cage and it drops, they are out of there, right? Or they have their oxygen, they go on and they get out. So I say, when people are telling you EMF's a problem, but you don't feel it, I say just take them seriously and maybe listen to them and maybe check your levels of everything, because you might not feel anything that's going on, right? Some people don't have introspection into their body. Some people, their organs will be riddled with cancer and they will have not 1 ounce of pain yet. Okay. And then there's people like me and you where there's tiny bit of pressure on our liver and we're like having anxiety attacks, right? So listen to the people around you, especially if your spouse or something is having problems and you get tested and you have all these things, then you should test too. And you should lower those things as well, because they will catch up to you. It's just a matter of when. And those are the people that end up riddled with cancer when they haven't had a symptom, or like a small symptom they've ignored or something.
Yeah,
Right?
and I would love to touch on even when we first started working together and even just starting on quote drainage with, just like cellular mitochondrial support, not even actually like killing anything or trying to dump anything or any binders or anything like that. And the symptoms I experienced, like maybe you can just speak to maybe these more sensitive people or sort of your order of operations and how you would do it differently. Because, for example, if I had done those same tests, maybe gone to see someone else that wasn't like you or I, hadn't had those experiences, they might have, tried to just jump right to the problem and put me on a whole host of supplements that maybe my body wasn't ready for. So maybe you can just speak to how you do it differently and your first order of operation there and like the
Yeah.
drainage piece that's missed by a lot of people.
Yeah. And even, I'm telling you, even draining flares people these days.
Yeah.
So you can't even go too high on drainers. So with really sensitive people, we usually try to start with liquids, and we try and start with micro dosing, like a single drop at a time. So say whatever organ that we're supporting, and we're doing like homeopathic. So it's almost like frequencies embedded into an ethanol tincture, right? And you work up very slowly, and you have to find a binder that works for someone. So even with you, a tiny bit of binder was kind of flaring you, right? So then you got to try a different binder, because sometimes what happens is you need the binder, you need the help. But what happens is sometimes you get the little bit of help and the body overreacts, because it's like, oh, I'm getting help and I'm going to start to detox this and throw this out of the cell and throw this out of the fat. And then it just overloads your system because your liver's still backed up and all of that. So we get things moving topically too, right? With like castor oil or different like homeopathic, lymph moving things, while we slowly titrate up a binder and slowly titrate up drainage. So we're doing things very slow in sensitive people. And we're really monitoring and really troubleshooting. So if this is a problem, okay, maybe we have to add more antioxidants. Maybe we have to add red light is like from far away. Some people herx with red light. Okay. So red light for 5 seconds on a body part, and they are having severe symptoms because it upregulates your mitochondria. So
Wow.
so it's like you have to have the little tools in the kit, and you have to be able to know how to troubleshoot and play with them. That was the biggest thing that got me through for how severely sick I was to be able to be where I am now, because this would usually put people out for 5 to 10 years. That's how long
Yeah.
that severe of a Lyme infection will put people out, because of the damage it does to every organ in your body. Okay. And also understanding the symptoms that show up in different um, populations. So kids, when you're killing stuff, they'll be more hyperactive, more angry, more rage. Like like adults might be more depression, more anxiety. They might have a rash show up. Well, kids show up with rashes too. So there's all different types of herxing that you have to understand too. And then there's the whole other side, when people get a lot of psychological problems when they try to kill something, and that's usually that there's a porphyrin problem. So heme is not being properly made, it's getting oxidized, and it creates the most terrible feeling in your entire body. And then we know how to troubleshoot that, and we know the difference between that's happening to someone and someone's having just a regular herx from killing too much and it being too much waste, as opposed to it being their own physiology creating way too much porphyrins. So
Wow.
those things took a lot of experience to learn and understand. Like, and even when I talk about them now and I think about where I came from, like, I don't know how you teach that to someone without them having some sort of experience, because the way symptoms jump in your body, the way, like, you know, psychologically you can feel completely normal to feeling like a complete insane person. Um, Going from feeling completely normal to this slight exposure and your blood pressure's through the roof and your heart's going crazy, and then there's the whole like, histamine reactions that happen, and everyone's blaming everything on MCAS. I have MCAS. I have, um, you know, which is like they call it histamine intolerance or something. Like your body's creating histamine because it's degranulating because it's trying to protect you from something. Your toxic load is too high. You have to like quelch the histamine because that creates a lot of symptoms, but you need to get rid of the toxic load. Like, so people can be on these crazy high doses of antihistamine and still having breakthrough histamine issues, right? But again, all of these histamine issues can also be tied back into your toxic load and your electromagnetic frequency exposure. And then therefore it's slowing down your lymph and having these plethora of problems. When your lymph is moving smoothly through your body, you don't get MCAS, which is the histamine intolerance. You don't get porphyria. You don't get severe herxing. So that's why it's so important and powerful.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of really the first book I read that introduced me to the whole concept of toxic load was The Rain Barrel Effect by
Yep.
Stephen Cabral. I'm sure you've read it or you've heard of it, but even how you refer to like your toxin bucket, And there's a quiz in that book that I'm just thinking for anyone that's new to this, or this might sound scary, like that book really is like an intro and can help you
Yeah.
introduce these things. And the quiz at the beginning of the book can also give you an idea of what your toxic load could look like that you're not even familiar of. Like I remember even talking with you, the questions in that book of, what's your mother like? What was her pregnancy like? How were you treated as an infant? What was
What was
birth
your
like? Like
birth
all of these.
order? What was your birth order? So the oldest child has the highest toxic load from their mother, which is why it's so important. And that if the oldest person is a girl, then they have even the highest. So, it's there's a lot, but there's like toxic by I always get confused with Dr. Nathan Bryan and Niels Nathan, but both of them have really great books on toxic load anyways. Like, so yeah, but your toxin bucket, I can rhyme off to you right now what those major things are. And I've already talked about some of them: mold, heavy metals, environmental chemicals, EMFs, parasites, viruses, bacteria. Like that's seven that are the main ones. And then there's trauma, mental stress, like, all of those other things that come in to make a human a human. Um, so, and I'm missing some, and if you just took care of some of those,
Yes.
you're going to be a much healthier human. But then like environmental chemicals involves like glyphosate and all that. So your gut microbiome gets highly affected by glyphosate, which is Roundup, right? So what people don't understand about detox and why your gut and your microbiome is so important in the way that you detox is because human liver can do so much, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
stuff that they're called forever chemicals. Forever chemicals aren't forever if you have a robust microbiome. But when you are getting exposed to glyphosate or Roundup every day, you don't have a robust microbiome. None of us have a robust microbiome right now because we're all exposed, even if we're eating organic, because they allow in North America the most toxic pesticide that acts as an antibiotic for our good bacteria. So our good bacteria are killed by glyphosate, but our bad bacteria are not. So you're creating a pathogenic microbiome. And those good bacteria, they break down plastics. They break down chemicals we don't even know the names of, right? So, and we're also killing them in our soil. So what's building up in our soil? Heavy metals. All the stuff that those bugs could break down for us. We're ruining our entire ecosystem. It's a huge deal, right?
Can you
So
give us some ways to support our good bugs and our microbiome that maybe people are overlooking or, they're just skipping to the let's kill the bad stuff? Like, I think there's definitely something to be said about supporting your own immune system and your microbiome and kind of just returning your body back to balance. And once you give it what it needs to get back to balance, it will take care of itself. It's
mm,
just that all of these, new toxicities, frequencies, things that are coming in are just removing us from our natural state.
mm.
Unless I'm putting words in your mouth, I think what I really learned from you is if we can just get back to our natural state and give our body what it needs to get there, it can handle it. It can take care of it for us.
Yeah. Well, one thing, and the reason that I make everyone take humic and fulvic acid is because that feeds our good microbiome just the way different fibers do, but it feeds really specifically good ones. And then, if you want to actually re-inoculate your microbiome, you have to eat multiple different fibers and different phytochemicals, which are the different colors. And honestly, there's this whole thing with the carnivore diet, which it changes your microbiome in a powerful way as well. So for some people, but not for others. So there's really great extreme diets, but we're not talking about that now. We're talking about what research shows. It shows that you eat a plethora of different fibers, like resistant starches, which are present in green bananas and cooked and cooled rice and Jerusalem artichokes and all these different like types of fiber that feed our good microbiome to make our microbiome make short chain fatty acids, which are things like butyrate and propionate and valerate that help to feed our gut lining, and they're anti-inflammatory for our body, and they feed other good bacteria. The bacteria that use butyrate as a fuel are often the ones that are breaking down all these extra chemicals for us. They're creating lots of anti-inflammatories for us. They're creating B vitamins and things that our body needs. And, even vitamin C, like certain guts in your microbiome create vitamin C. So humans don't create their own vitamin C, right? So we can have a lot of oxidative damage. Every other mammal can. But our good bugs in our gut actually can create vitamin C, but a lot of us are devoid in those, and everyone's vitamin C is tanked, right? So we have to get that from either food or good supplementation, like whole food supplementation, or at least vitamin C that's not grown on mold, right? Because a lot of it is grown on black mold. So those ascorbic acids. So you have to be careful for when you're supplementing as well, and look for mixed ascorbates, or talk to the companies or the person that's suggesting the supplement and make sure that it's not grown on black mold. Um, Same with like citric acids, right? Citric acid is not a bad ingredient. Citric acid can be very good at decalcifying stuff, right? But if your citric acid is again sourced from black mold, you can't clean every spore off. Like, it is just not going to be possible. So, I
You
mean,
can take us through a couple either brands that you like and you lean on and you trust, or certain supplements for rebuilding the gut or helping repopulate this microbiome. Like, I know I've heard of supplementing with butyrate. Do you think that's a good thing for someone to support their microbiome?
yeah, we use butyrate, especially because we test everyone and we can see if their butyrate's really low. And then when you go on, you can dose butyrate higher based on that, but it's going to really help your colon heal so you don't have a leaky colon. Everyone talks about leaky, like small intestine, which is important, but like obviously there's so much waste in our colon. Um, Butyrate's so important for anti-inflammatory for multiple different reasons. So we supplement it, yes. And it's powerful. That's one way to help heal the gut. We use gut immune cells if people have low immune in there, right? Because then that means their first line of defense, which is your secretory IgA, when that's bottomed out, which it is when you have low good microbiome, then your body is just letting infections fester. Your first line of defense is literally like your front line is tired, and then it's left up to your more advanced immune system to try to wipe out these bugs, which creates way more inflammation and imbalances and autoimmune and all of that. So we support that. We use a lot of like megaspore. Recently, if someone tests really low with akkermansia, we use that because that helps take all the waste off the mucus layer of your gut. But you don't want to take akkermansia if you don't know if your akkermansia is low, because then it can thin your gut lining too much, your mucus lining. Um, and then yeah, those spore-based probiotics are huge, right? Those are the ones that are going to help reinoculate the gut. They're the only ones with evidence showing that they help recolonize anything. And so spore-based probiotics, they live through your stomach acid. And those are the ones that you take with food because you want to increase your stomach acid to help those spores break open. And then they actually make butyrate, and they are shown to feed different strains like Akkermansia and fecal bacterium, which are some of our keystone strains. Along with bifidobacterium and some of those other ones, right? But other probiotics that are the most common ones that really help symptomatically, and they can help be a really good band-aid, and you could take them at high doses and even wipe out certain infections like bifidobacterium, lactobacilli, different strep species, Saccharomyces, all of that. They all have like a time and a place. But if you're really trying to change your microbiome, it's going to be more with food, with vagal toning, with because that's another thing we didn't talk about, because that they showed that vagal stim helps your good bacteria grow faster than honestly multiple other things. So, and I kind of can't stand, like, my clinic's called Vagus Clinic, but it's because I realized lowering my toxic load helped my vagus nerve turn on. Yes, I do exercises for it. Yes, I have people work in their trauma, but you don't start at when someone comes to you acutely and you tell them they need to hum, gargle, gag, and they have to work on their family trauma, there's a time and a place for things, right? So your vagus nerve, an external stim to like zap it on, can be very powerful when you're in acute situations or you're really sick, but you have to lower your toxic load. You have to move the lymph away from your vagus nerve, because when your lymph builds, where your vagus nerve is more superficial is where all of the waste is sitting over top of your vagus nerve, and those bugs can actually infect your vagus nerve. So working on your family trauma is not going to get an infection out of your vagus nerve. Okay. So, but sometimes zapping it and working on other things are going to help, but there are certain bugs that activate your vagus nerve. And if you activate your vagus nerve, it activates in your gut the growth of better bacteria. So, um, you know, and then it does become important when you're getting better from an illness and you feel your symptoms coming on, so you don't spiral, to do those calming behaviors that people teach as the be all end all for healing your vagus nerve, but you need to lower the toxic load, right? So like, and even like using something like the safe and sound technique, which is based on the polyvagal theory, is based on frequencies that help turn on your vagus nerve. So you can use all of those, but you have to be doing both at once, especially if you're really sick and you have chronic issues. Um, there has to be, you're working on your toxic load, and then you're also working through those things. And there'll become a time and a place where things become more powerful and more useful for you. But your practitioner needs to be able to gauge what those are for you. Not like you're almost dying and yeah, you need to like work through family trauma. No, not time and a place. Time and a place for everything. So
Yeah.
that's my spiel on that. But
No, I love the spiel. I kind of wanted to, maybe it would be helpful if we could draw a line because, health and wellness is so popular and everyone's so into taking supplements and doing all these things, which on one hand, it's great that, people are waking up and they're trying to take care of their health. But on the other hand, it's like you can't replace a practitioner like you that's been doing this for many years and has gone through the experience that you have. So maybe if you could draw a line or kind of paint two pictures of someone who may or may not necessarily need a practitioner and some things that they can be doing to support themselves versus you need help from someone and you cannot just be taking everything you're seeing online because there's a lot of people like influencers that are just rhyming off supplements that you should take, things that are going to do this, that, whatever, making very personalized recommendations to the masses. So I'm hoping you can kind of paint these two pictures and help
yeah,
us decide
I'm
place.
gonna actually be a little biased and say that everyone needs a practitioner right now, because I don't know if you've seen these healthy people that are just dropping dead. So obviously there's something they're not feeling in their body that they need to shed some light on. So you don't have to necessarily maybe go as deep, but I think everyone should be doing like some sort of testing to test what their toxic load is and give their body some sort of break, because people don't know or feel all of these things. And I think, you do a few visits, get that information, and then you can work on just doing what is the supporting stuff, like sunlight, grounding each day, feeling grateful, like eating that healthy food, finding, everyone should be taking a binder. I know that for a fact, because our toxic load is way too high for our body to, I haven't seen anyone, and, I'm testing healthy people and they think they're fine and then they feel better. So I think, and I had a practitioner, and I'll always have a practitioner, and I'll always, even when I feel 100%, be checking out what's going on, because I'm not only like biologically interested, and I think people should be more so for their own body and stop you should have a practitioner that's teaching you about this on a regular basis. And now it's starting to be easier to even sometimes run your own tests if they're obvious tests, like it's a scale and this says your heavy metals are high or they're not, right? And but the thing is everything has its ambiguities, because even if you're doing a heavy metal test, it might show that you have none, and that's never true. It means it's stuck somewhere in your body and you're not detoxing it. It might mean that you're not getting like a very high exposure at a regular basis. But when you start opening up drainage pathways or doing ultrasound on somebody and then making them pee, then you start to see all these toxins coming out. So stuff is stuck in our tissues no matter what. So
Mhm.
even when people heal from chronic disease, they heal in layers. First, you get the most topical one that's creating symptoms, and then you can empty someone's toxin bucket enough that their cup's not overflowing, but then they're going to get another exposure and it's going to turn back on. So you have to start to get stuff out of the tissue that's stuck in there, in the fascia, in the interstitial space, the space between the cells, right? Our body's smart. It kicks everything out in there. So I think everyone needs some sort of help this day and age. And I think there needs to be more practitioners knowing what we're talking about here. But
Yeah.
yeah, no one's perfect. And honestly, even if you're eating the cleanest diet, and we see that it is not near enough, especially when something gets turned on. Like that's who we work with, people with what you would call a perfect diet, and they're sick as can be.
Yeah.
So
And maybe this is something that you would recommend for everyone, but I know that when we booked this podcast, I wanted to pick your brain about Organogold coffee specifically because it's been getting a lot of attention online. It's getting really popular, and it really helped someone like me who, couldn't even tolerate quote drainage at the beginning. Maybe you can speak to like what is Organogold, this instant coffee that everyone's talking about and taking, and why do you use it personally? Why do you recommend it?
So, by the way, I've been using Organo for like a decade now. I've barely talked about it because of the connotation that you get from multi-level marketing, because essentially that's the way they're set up, right? An MLM.
Yes.
But I mean, these MLMs have these amazing products. So I need to get over that myself. But these things are they found a patented way to get release the spore from reishi. And if you guys haven't learned anything about mushrooms, there's like, some great documentaries even now with the mushroom guy. I can't remember his name right now. But it's like fantastic fungi or something. Like mushrooms have the capability to modulate our immune system. That's why some of them can be just like frequencies. Some are good or some are bad because, some mushrooms you eat and you could immediately die. But reishi is one of those ones that has powerful, like immune modulating effects. And it can be very calming from those immune modulating effects. So the way that they extract the spore, and you can use different parts of the mushroom. So there's the body, there's the spore, and there's the mycelium, so that's Ganoderma is the body. The reishi spore is the spore. That's how it germinates. And then you've got the mycelium, which is the connection all between all the mushrooms. It's their roots. And you can use them for all different things. And we do. We use Organo's mycelium for a lot of brain issues, for a lot of post-concussive, for a lot of behavioral, for calming the brain for kids. We use reishi. I mean, I drink only Organo coffee. What they do with the Organo coffee is an instant coffee, but they do it without chemicals, like so it's the water process. But then they also take out one of the stimulating acids, and this is what makes it not as good for like an enema, but good if you've never done a coffee enema because it's not going to pull too much because it doesn't have the full acid profile. But it's that full acid profile that's overstimulating for some people. So this is the reason why caffeine is this area that people don't understand well, because they're like, I can drink matcha, which has the same amount of caffeine as a coffee, but you feel more stimulated from the coffee because of the acid profile. So they take out some of those stimulating acids. Then they have their reishi spore in there. That's the patented process of, making it the most bioavailable. And it modulates your immune system. It calms your vagus nerve. It's just kills candida. I don't know, like I can't even remember the list of positive things. You can high dose spores for like different cancers. I don't do that personally, but I know one of the big founders does, and he's one of my mentors as well. But I would say that when I had Lyme carditis and they told me not to drink coffee, I'm like, I don't even drink coffee. I drink King coffee. And I cut it out for like whatever, 5 days, and my blood pressure went higher and higher. And then when I had one, I actually felt better than I had in like the full week. And this is with Lyme carditis. So, and it even can hurts people, like their skin breaks out in rashes. They could only start with half of it. But yeah, it has these powerful immune modulating effects. So what I do is I add like an extra capsule of spores, and I kind of try to get up to 4 spore capsules a day. So there's 1 spore in each pack of the King coffee. And you can add another one in there, or you can just take it in the capsule form. And then I usually have 2 King coffees a day, and then I add in the second one. So I'm getting 4 a day to help modulate the immune system, the body, the Ganoderma lucidum, and also the spores. They're high in, but more the body is high in beta glucans, which help lower glucuronidation or the beta glucuronidase. So when people are recirculating toxic estrogens or other toxins because they have too much of a bad bacteria in their gut that makes your body dissolve the glucuronidation that happens, which is what's making our liver actually detox something and then it makes these toxins get recirculated into the gut. So it's high in beta glucans, and so it helps your gut. And then, yeah, there's just multiple different.
Because I know it's gaining popularity in the skincare space. And I know that I initially was interested because I was struggling with cystic acne. And I
Mhm.
think this has really helped in the process because even, practitioners I saw trying to heal my skin over time were like, oh, you should cut out coffee because,
Yeah.
your cortisol is high and all these host of issues that contribute to acne, which I've now learned. And I was like, coffee is like my one joy in life. That's the
Yeah.
last thing I have taken out, like seriously. And I
Mhm.
remember cutting coffee for probably 2 or 3 months. It made no difference to my skin,
Mhm.
because I'd always drink in, organic, mold and mycotoxin, like third party tested, like clean coffee, which is a whole other conversation. But I've
Yeah.
found, switching to King has definitely supported that as
Yeah.
well. But
Yeah.
I'm not hearing online people talk about it the way that you have taught me. They know the service level information, but I just think you're so well versed and you know about all the ways that, it's changing things at the cellular level. And you just know so much about that I've learned from you. So I want everyone to get the spiel.
Yeah, and also lowering candida. Candida can be a big thing that's um bogging down your liver, and then that can show up on your face, right? Is cystic acne.
Yeah, we should do an acne episode in particular, and you could just like go through the whole acne
Yeah,
situation with me. We can like debunk all of it and go through what worked and what didn't. That would be really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, we
Everyone
could.
do
It's
it.
it's more and more common too. And like again, that's a big lymph drainage thing, but your liver is highly related to lymph, and then candida is very slowing down of your liver and your lymph. So your lymph, like 50% of it is made by your liver, and then 30% by your gut, and the rest by your the lymphocytes, like the actual cholangials, no, wrong word. Um LACs, something I can't remember what it stands for, but they make the lymph in the actual vessels.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot. Like acne taught me a lot and definitely got me more, turned me into an investigator and like, maybe want to absolutely absorb everything you put out and learn so much from you. So like same way you're so grateful for Lyme, like I'm grateful for acne as a teacher. It
Mhm.
definitely sucked at the time, but I wouldn't have it any other way now.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, we live in a society where vanity is huge, right? So people are very highly motivated when it's something people can see, right? So I'll
Yeah,
tell you guys one thing for vanity, not good flowing lymph, and all the EMF exposure is making your hair gray. So
there we go.
it's depleting your minerals, and you better get on top of your chromium and your copper and start to learn about that, because you're going to have a full head of gray hair if you don't sort that out.
That's really cool. I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to touch on just the ins and outs of Vegas clinic right now and some of behind the scenes if you would feel
Yeah.
comfortable sharing, because I kind of know a little bit about your business and behind the scenes, but I feel like, you know, not everyone knows how you're operating and that you're such a small team and you guys are just working so hard and doing so much. So I would
Yeah.
love if you could kind of touch on like your day to day and what your team looks like right now.
Yeah. So our day to day is always very different, because we have people fly in sometimes, and then we take them all over and do lots of in-person testing, and we use different machines on them and help oxygenate their body, and then do a lot of the manual treatment. But typically what happens is we try to get someone on a little bit educated. So they join a program. We mail them testing and test kits. We do like a very thorough history. And during that history, we make some notes of what they should start doing. So once we get results, we can go into the deeper stuff. And then we, in the meantime, make them make some lifestyle changes, maybe diet, maybe adding castor oil, grounding, whatever it is that comes up is different for each situation. In everything we do, we record, and we make sure that we make it as easy as possible, because we know that big life changes are definitely hard. And so we put it into a plan that can even be overwhelming, but at least you have it there if you need to click on it. If something becomes important, you're like, oh, I can look back here. And and then we troubleshoot with you. So that's the biggest thing, getting you on supplements, making sure you're doing it properly so that we can have you successfully put yourself through the actual supplements. If you're local or if you're willing to fly in, then you come in and you see Leah or sometimes me for the first um, manual treatment. And we, in the interim, send you videos of how to treat yourself or have your spouse treat you, or maybe find someone local. We're trying to create a directory where we have other people that can help us. And if we have people come into town, we always have them see Dr. Nick, and we do an oligo scan for heavy metals, and we do a scan for your HRV, and we do manual treatment there as well, and then some frequency treatments and some other lymph machines. We have like oxygen bath or oxygen water. We just try to hyperoxygenate, and a lot of the supplements that we're doing, we're just trying to get oxygen to the cells, because if you see people's blood work these days, their blood is just thick. They're just trying to get oxygen to the body, right? So, and then like pulling heavy metals from them if they can't find a foot detox. So we're using tools that you can either buy if you can invest in them at your home, or find something close to you that you're still pulling the toxins and getting manual body treatment and working internally and working mentally on stuff. So we'll suggest either different programs, or again, depending on what the pain points are for the person. But we're just, if their house needs tested, we're getting them the right people. Are they drinking clean water? We're getting those basics on board. So we're trying to teach people and empower you. And we have all these guides that can show you, okay, coming down with this. Like, I don't want you to take an antibiotic if you don't have to. I know there's time and a place for an antibiotic, but I was just almost getting a cold and flu, and I gargled silver 5 times a day. I drank propolis. I took a mix of a blend that we use for upper respiratory tract infections. I took a dropper full 7 times a day, which no one would do if they didn't know that that was possible. And I shut down what was a really bad sickness of somebody that I was around that didn't do the same thing. So we want to empower you, because honestly, like, understanding the body and understanding that it's like these few things that are affecting our health so much, and we have the power to keep them down and low and cleanse parasites each year, or if your viral load is more of a problem, like focusing on that, modulating the immune system, keeping up on the vagus nerve, like just touching on all the aspects that help you be a vibrant human and not have to go through what I went through or what you went through.
And I don't think people know that you are pretty much always traveling and working with a lot of NHL teams. You're always traveling to treat people. And if you're not traveling, they're traveling to you to come use all these, healing modalities that you have access to, which I think is really cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people know how involved you are with like the NHL scene and how many players you treat.
No, I don't. And, I used to talk about it more, and it's just like one of those things that it's, these guys are, people think they're like the healthiest of the healthiest, and they're suffering just like everyone else, and they need even more support. So those are people that I say every single one of them needs a practitioner like me. None of them have good looking stool samples or anything. Even the ones that think they're doing good, their immune system gets tanked because they're over exercising, which that's another thing we talk about, people like prioritizing rest. When you're not well, trying to work out does not serve you. Stretching, Tai Chi, movement, walking, yes, but time and a place, work up, build up your stamina, and then we want you to get there where you're building muscle and all that, but just time and a place for everything. And I had one guy, oh, I got to work out so hard, and I'm like, the guys that I saw perform the best this year did way less. They did less. They still strength train, but why? Like, we try to teach them, if you're a hockey player, you don't need to sprint. Like, you don't need to sprint. You need to sprint on the ice. Like, but
Printing
your
once a
ankles,
year every day.
your ankles are literally not used to running in a normal shoe, and everyone tears their Achilles, the Achilles heel, right? Like, they're just like, but that's not even one thing. It's like, it's not, no one thinks of even mechanically like what's serving them anymore. And so anyways, it's just, again, thinking outside of the box for that and for them, whereas like getting their stabilizing muscles better with Pilates while also doing the strength training is going to serve them more, or making sure their rotation, they have functional rotation. Like, so there's like that mechanical aspect. And then there's the fact that their guts are usually a mess. They get the highest amount of upper respiratory tract infections. They had COVID more times than any other population I knew. They had, so it's like, it's just this disconnect of people they think a certain thing, like you look a certain way, so you're healthy, but it's not true. And also those people, they have the shortest careers. They have the worst health post-career. NFL, people don't know how much I worked with NFL players. And that's a whole other ballgame of dysfunction. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
I'm sure
that.
like brain health there too is a big one.
Yeah, but their guts. Yeah, I didn't even talk about the brain for all of them, but oh, that's something else I'll touch on. And I have one post that I was like so proud of that never really made any waves because I don't think people got it. But it was like, you don't need to be hit in the head to have a hit to the head. So when you have a chronically ill person, they can get the full-blown concussion from tapping their head getting out of a car. They can have a full-blown concussion, the same as what would take an athlete a smash into the boards to have the same symptoms, because they have a leaky blood-brain barrier and they have too much of a toxic load. So if you want to protect your head from concussions, you want to lower your toxic load, which means you want to increase your good gut bacteria and make sure you don't have leaky gut, because when you have leaky gut, you have leaky brain. And then you also want to make sure that you lower all of those toxins that are stuck in your fascia that will make your muscles tear more, that will make you have a shorter career, and you want to work on things like supporting your lungs, which we know ways to do that. And we have such great hacks to do that. And then we get people having less colds and flus and having more games that they're playing and less little nagging symptoms and less lactic acid in their muscle and less so they can skate better or run better. And like, yes, they all need treatment and they all need to work on the inside and the outside.
And I think there's something to say too about a practitioner like you sort of just ended up in this position where you're treating high performers in every category, like CEOs, billionaires, professional athletes. And it's because their performance is so important. Like there's so much on the line for their performance. Whereas, maybe a standard everyday person working a 9 to 5 that they hate, maybe it doesn't matter if they perform or not. Maybe it doesn't matter if they feel like shit or not. But for a professional athlete, for their performance to go down, it's like there's an $8 million contract on the line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're a lot more motivated to work with you and get to the root cause and do this hard work and fix it.
Yeah.
So I just think there's also something to say about this whole industry where, prices go up and you are worth what you charge because of all of this time and knowledge and value. And that's why, high performers are attracted to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to learn for a practitioner because we're just taught to give, but it's a business too, and we need to receive to get the amount of motivation and take care of ourselves enough to take care of people better. And that was something hard for me to learn, and I had to drive myself down into the ground of helping other people to then get to a point where I couldn't help anyone because I was in bed with severe Lyme carditis and a toxin load through the roof, even though I was eating healthy and taking binders and I don't take all the blame because our environment changed a lot and there was a lot that I still had to learn, and it's humbling, but it's empowering too at the end of the day.
Yeah, like coaches need coaches, practitioners need practitioners, everyone needs a mentor. Like
Yep.
you're never gonna know it all. I know that
Never.
for a fact. Like you're such a lifelong learner, and that's what sets you apart.
I always have had a mentor. I had a mentor for the start of functional medicine. I had a different mentor. Now I have a different mentor. I have multiple mentors. I literally don't stop trying to learn. And even part of like interviewing people for a podcast is because you can learn from them as well.
Yeah.
So we have a podcast where we're interviewing some of the smartest people, and yeah, so
This is why I'm glad to come on and flip the script and interview you. Like we just got an hour of Steph talking. Does everyone know how valuable this is? I don't
thank
think they do.
you. Thanks for doing this. It was your idea. It was great. It gets the juices flowing, and then yeah, yeah,
I know. I'm like sad we have to stop. I feel like we go for another hour.
I know, but we can do it again.
We will. I want to do an acne episode. I want to dive into like your future plans and lymph and all the courses and everything you're making. So we'll definitely do another, but I want to finish with one question.
Yeah, let's go.
My last question is, 10 years from now, give us like heaven on earth. Where are you? What are you doing? Steph Canashiro, Vegas clinic, the
Mhm.
whole picture.
Ooh, I'm in Italy. Everyone has learned so much about lymph. We have so many practitioners practicing and understanding the body the way we do. It's easy to get people the help that they need, but I don't have to personally help them because there's just so many other amazing practitioners that just are rocking and rolling and they're just so motivated. And yeah, just multiple courses and just learning so much more. Sorry, that's him.
Okay, I love that. That's a perfect answer. And I'm gonna be moving to Italy with you, so I will see you there.
Perfect.